Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Reality Bites, the show where we talk about all of the greatest hits reality TV shows have to offer. I'm your host, Jake Schaff. Let's get started. So, we just finished another episode of Survivor, the seventh episode of the season. We're in the majors, which we certainly are at this point. And I don't know why I keep thinking that every episode I'm about to watch, it might be because I come into every episode with very subdued expectations because I don't know what to expect, or I like to be surprised. I try not to get my hopes up for whatever's about to happen tonight. So I always like to be surprised, and I certainly was tonight. I keep thinking that with so many big episodes we've had recently of Survivor, that we're in due time for a bit of a sleeper episode, a bit of a quieter one, which I think in comparison to the last episode, this was a bit quieter, but it still had its fair share of big moments. And I think another reason why I thought it was going to be a sleeper is because the more and more closer we got to the episode, I started to realize that the merge wasn't going to happen yet, and we weren't going to have the big returning challenge quite yet. That is going to happen next week, but for now, it was another standard episode of Survivor, which was honestly kind of nice. Because in recent seasons, it seems like Survivor has always tried to speed up to the merge very, very quickly. They've all, like, lately the merge has always been at 13 players, or it's been at or just there haven't been that many episodes, not many eliminations before the merge. You know what I'm saying? So with 11 people left in the game right now, and someone coming back into the game next episode, that'll bring us to 12. So it's kind of nice that they had us wait for the merge just a little bit. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, with the players that are going to be headed to the merge after this episode, it's certainly going to be intense, especially since all of the big players are currently not in the actual game. They are all at Extinction. So, well, most of them are, and let's get into that right now. Let's just jump right into talking about the episode right now. So I'm going to change things up a little bit, and I'm going to start off by talking about the Edge of Extinction before I talk about any of the tribes, because we basically got all the Edge of Extinction stuff out of the way in this episode anyway, with the exception of a brief break to look into Sele, but I'll get to the Sele in a little bit. So everyone is waiting at Edge of Extinction for the next couple people to show up. Well, they don't know it's a double elimination. But they see Parvati show up, and then they see Sandra show up. And of course, everyone's commenting on the fact that almost all of the old school players are there at the Edge of Extinction, with the exception of Yule. Parvati brings up the fact how she was just basically cornered for her elimination, how she didn't really see a way out. And Sandra gives everyone the play-by-play of her historic blunder with giving Denise the immunity idol, which I'm still in shock that she actually did that, and that actually cost her the game. So Sandra's looking around at the environment at the Edge of Extinction, and basically she just pretty much says to everyone, you know what, I'm just here to say hi to you guys for a quick minute because I'm not staying here. I'm tapping out. And she basically explains how she doesn't want to wait around for God knows when for a challenge when she's likely not going to win it. Because, as has been established in her multiple runs on Survivor, Sandra is not one for physical challenges. In fact, in the 2 seasons she won Survivor, she has not won a single individual immunity challenge. So she already can tell that she's going into this with a huge disadvantage, especially since she's going up against the likes of people like Rob, Ethan, Amber, and in fact, I'm not 100% sure on this. I could be wrong, but I want to say that every other person there at the Edge of Extinction has at least won one immunity challenge individually. So Sandra just basically saw this as, what's the point of staying here if I know I'm not going to come back into the game? So I think a couple people were like, no, you can try, give it a shot. And she's like, no, you know what? I've done everything I possibly could in Survivor. I've won the game twice, and I'm ready to go. I want to let you guys just play the game. So Sandra says her goodbyes and just heads out, raises the sail, which I honestly didn't think. Well, actually, that's not true. I wasn't sure if anyone was going to raise the sail or not, and I'll get into that in just a moment. But Sandra raises the sail, the boat comes and gets her, and just like that, in the blink of an eye, we have our first official full-on elimination from the season. Sandra Diaz Twine, the Queen of Survivor, is eliminated in 20th place, which is kind of surprising to think about, how the person who's won this game twice is actually the person who comes in last. Which makes a little bit of sense on paper, but not when you actually see how the game was played. And as for my opinions on why Sandra quit the game, or if I think, or do I respect that move or not, I mean, obviously I'm always going to respect Sandra. I mean, she is one of the greatest players to ever play this game. I mean, say what you will about her challenge capabilities or her demeanor around camp, but she, for a long time, until this season, was the only person to win this game twice, and that's something you can never take away from her. But as for her choosing to leave the game tonight, honestly, I have mixed feelings, because on the one hand, I can understand why she chose to do it, but on the other hand, I don't know if it was necessarily smart. Because I do respect that Sandra knows her limitations, that she realizes the crazy stakes that come into play with the Edge of Extinction, and that she realizes that life there is going to be 10 times worse than it ever was in any season of Survivor she's ever been on. And I knew she was never going to be crazy about that. Plus, and this is why I hesitated when I was going to say I don't think anyone would raise the flag. Because as soon as I said that, I was reminded of some preseason interviews that I read about. Specifically people like Kim, Jeremy, and Tony, none of whom are on the Edge, who all stated in an interview that they would not want to see the Edge of Extinction on their season, stating that none of them really liked the twist, it defeats a big purpose of the game, and that if they were eliminated and sent to the Edge, they would likely just leave and honor the game as it was played. So from that standpoint, I can understand another reason as to why Sandra chose to leave. She wanted to honor the game that's been played, that's always been played from the start, of once you're voted out, that's it. You got me, game over. I don't want to mess up the rhythm. I don't want to try to fight my way back, because that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel like the game I've become accustomed to playing all these years. So from that standpoint, I can understand another reason as to why Sandra left. But at the same time, she got to Edge of Extinction and she left all within seemingly they only showed us like a couple minutes. I'm going to guess it was maybe 20 minutes that she was actually there. I mean, she could have at least given it a chance. That's all I'm saying. Like, she didn't have to stay until the final day of the Edge of Extinction, but she could have at least tried it. She could have at least experienced what everyone else got to experience. And who knows? Crazier things have happened in individual immunity challenges. Sandra, I mean, albeit very unlikely, there was still a chance that she could have won it and that she could have fought her way back into the game. Can you imagine how incredible that would be to witness? Not just actually in the game, but for us to see Sandra, the woman who we see constantly sit out every single immunity challenge whenever she has the chance, to suddenly plow ahead and nail everyone at that immunity challenge, or that returning challenge, whatever you want to call it. That would have been incredible. And even though there was a huge chance that wouldn't have actually happened, she owed it to herself to at least try. But she had her reasons for leaving the game. I respect her reasons. I can understand why she would choose to walk away. But at the same time, I still think that with this being Winners at War, you want to at least give it just a little bit more than what you've given it before. So that's just my opinion. So, Sandra chose to leave the edge of extinction, and the next morning, life on the edge seems to continue normally. We take a moment to look over at Ethan, and he voices his concerns about still being at the edge. And for a split second, I get really worried that he's about to quit too, but thankfully that doesn't happen. But he explains how he hasn't felt this weak or this I don't know how you want to phrase it, this disheveled since he was diagnosed with cancer. And that was years ago. I mean, I think the last time he beat cancer was like in 2013, I want to say. So it's been a few years. And how he's constantly worried that it could come back. He's worried that starving himself wouldn't be a good idea. And we see him voicing his concerns to Parvati, who's become like a really nice shoulder for him to lean on. And that's one of the really nice things I like seeing this season. It's nice to see the relationships that people have built in the past and the ones that people continue to build now in this game. I know Ethan and Parvati have been friends prior to this, and it's nice to see that they have the support for each other. So once that was over, we see Ethan come back to the hut or the shelter with the next Edge of Extinction challenge. And basically, it explains how back up at the top of that ever famous hill, there's 4 hidden fire tokens that are hidden at 4 different paths, and that people can find as many of the 4 as they can. And basically it's first come, first serve. So everyone starts bolting it up the hill, trying to find any scrap of fabric or anything that looks out of place. We see Tyson find the first token, and immediately when I see him find it, I'm already thinking, is he actually going to use this for an advantage, or is he just going to waste it on peanut butter again? But no, we didn't see that, and I don't know what he actually did with it. He probably still has it. And everyone's now searching for the other 3. They're thinking, I don't think anyone else has found them. And I see Rob getting a lot of screen time during this exchange, and immediately I'm thinking, that son of a bitch already found them, didn't he? And sure enough, he did. Rob found all 3 of the other tokens without even that much trouble. That was the crazy part. He followed the paths so much better than anyone else did, and no one even batted an eye. No one even noticed the fact that Boston Rob found all of the other 3 tokens. I don't even know if Amber knows that he found them. That's the crazy part. And they're doing another strip search like they usually have done this season, that I've seen them do a few times. And Rob still doesn't give anything away. And this proved to us again why Boston Rob is the godfather of Survivor. He is playing at a whole other level than everybody else there at the edge. He's finding these advantages. He knows what to do with them, and I really think he's in a good position to come back into the game next episode. And if that happens, that's going to be chaos. And I look forward to just about anyone that comes back from the edge. Like, I really think anyone that can come back from the edge would make for a great shift in events coming into the merge. And one more side note, that wink Boston Rob, or that nod he gave to the camera right before they went to commercial break, was priceless. He just looked at the camera, he's like, yeah, that's right, I did that. You saw that. That's why I'm the king. Just incredible. That was fantastic what he did. And I know I kept saying for weeks that everyone needs to get rid of Boston Rob, but honestly, I really do love to see him play, and I'd love to see him come back and fight even harder to win that $2 million. That would be incredible. All right, I've talked long enough about Edge of Extinction. Let's go into the people that are actually still playing the actual game of Survivor. Let's start with the Sele tribe. So after the last tribal council, after Parvati gets sent home, people aren't exactly happy with Wendell. Not even his free agents' allies are really that tight with him anymore. Yule mentions his frustrations with Wendell deciding to just throw away his vote at tribal council for one measly fire token, And he calls him out on it, and Wendell's saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I wasn't trying to come off as pretentious, but Yule and Nick aren't exactly buying it." And this was the first real show of friction that I've seen with the Free Agent Alliance, which I honestly don't even know if that's still going to be a thing after this episode, for multiple reasons. One of which was the fact that Nick was saying multiple times how he wanted the four of them on Sele to make it to the end of this game. So you've just completely thrown Sophie out of the equation. You're thinking, oh, she's on another tribe, she's playing a whole different game, sucks for her. So right there, that tells me that I don't know if this Free Agents Alliance is really going to be sticking together once they get back together at the merge. Wendell also trying to do damage control with Michelle. And this is when Nick starts to notice the demeanor that Wendell has with Michelle as opposed to the one that he has had with him and Yule. With him and Yule, he's very calm, collected, he's like one of the boys. But with Michelle, it's seemingly very hostile. Like he can sense the friction between the two of them, obviously since they were exes that clearly had a messy breakup. And he's seeing Wendell come off as kind of a jerk. And honestly, like, I like Wendell. I love the game he played on Ghost Island. But to be honest, I'm not really crazy about the game he's played so far this season. He was very quiet for the first portion of the game. But once we got to the team switch, we're seeing him in a different light. We're seeing him come off as very cocky, very pretentious. Stuff that we saw in great detail much later in the episode. And I'm not really digging it. So honestly, I was already starting to feel like, okay, you know what? If Wendell goes home this episode, I'm not going to be disappointed. He can go. I'm good. And another big thing that I really think was a huge mistake on Michelle's part, she explained how she gave one of the fire tokens she just got from Parvati to Wendell to try to mend fences between them. Like, I understand you wanting to try to make sure everything's okay, but if Wendell's not exactly someone that's on your side, don't give him a fire token. You had 4 of them. You could have bought yourself a brand new idol. And yes, she still has 3. That's still plenty more than most of the other contestants have. But still, she shouldn't have done that. Every fire token is valuable. And I really think that Michelle would have been better off holding on to that one, because 4 fire tokens can get you a hell of a lot farther than just 3 of them. Moving over to the Dakal tribe, where things are seemingly a lot more breezy over there. A lot more carefree. We see Tony doing like a makeshift survivor challenge. I don't even know what you want to call it. He was just running down the beach, and it made me wonder, what the hell is Tony even doing this season? Because it seems like every single time Tony has played this game, we've seen a completely different character. The first time Tony played, he was genius, mastermind, building spy shacks, finding idols. Fantastic. Second time he played Survivor, he was such a dud. He got paranoid, he got greedy, he made careless mistakes, and was just pathetic to watch. And this season, I mean, it's certainly better than how he played in Game Changers, but not quite to the level that he was at in Cagayan. He hasn't found any idol. He doesn't have any advantage. He's simply just playing this game without a care in the world. He's being the comic relief. Catching sharks, building makeshift bamboo ladders, and I don't know. He's playing the game, and I'm so happy he's still here, and I'm hoping now that the merge is in effect that we're going to start to see the Tony we've really grown accustomed to. And he explains in the confessional how he really thinks he's in a great position on the tribe. He explains how he has a tight relationship with Kim, and that he's hoping that he has a really tight relationship with Jeremy too, given the whole cop and fireman sort of deal. And he's also realizing that with Denise taking the big move and getting rid of Sandra, that puts the huge target onto her back, and he can use her as a shield at the next tribal council. So he thinks that everything is totally set up. But of course, Jeremy is already talking about in confessional how he still has his eyes on Tony, and Tony above everyone else. He knows what he's capable of. He knows Tony is really the biggest threat given everything he's done in Survivor, and that he's not wanting him to slide by any longer. He wants to weigh his options, but it really wouldn't hurt Jeremy if he wanted to take the move to target Tony. Again, I don't want Tony to go home, but in terms of a gameplay move, it's definitely the one that Jeremy should look into. Meanwhile, Denise is still worried about the target that could be on her back after getting rid of Sandra, because that big move cost her both of her immunity idols when it really should have only costed her one. Granted, I can understand her reasons for playing another one, but still, she could have held on to it and would have been set for at least another vote. So, Denise talks to Kim and tries to make sure that everything is good between them, thinking that they would become really good partners in the future. And Kim mentions in confessional how she's once again in the middle of all of these big players and how she really hasn't had control of this game at all. Which, as I've mentioned before, it's a big contrast to Kim when she was on One World, where she pretty much dominated the entire game. So this is a very different side to Kim Spradlin we're seeing, and I like it. I like that we're seeing Kim sort of start from the bottom, and hopefully we can get her towards the top. Because she has been one of the quieter presences on this season, and I really want that to change, because I know what she's capable of, and I was really excited to see her cast on this season, and I just hope that she's got one big move in her, and we can get a glimmer from the old Kim Spradlin on One World. And now for the last of the three tribes, let's go over to Yara, where again, they're not really as much in game mode as Sele was, but not so much easy breezy as Dakal was. They're like right in the middle. They're enjoying some nice leftovers of the peanut butter and jelly reward that they got from last episode, which kind of freaked me out at first. I'm like, where the hell did they get peanut butter and jelly? And then I remembered, oh right, that's where. It's still a very clear division between Sarah and Sophie and Ben and Adam. And Adam's talking to Ben about the possibility of an immunity idol and how he hasn't really heard chatter about one yet, or at least not in a while. So he's starting to wonder if somebody's already found it. And with Ben really not searching that well, and with Sarah just pretending to search, Adam's already on to the fact that he's pretty sure that this idol's already been found, which he was right about that. But he was wrong about who had it. He said he was so confident that either Sarah or Ben had it. And he starts venting this frustration over to Sophie, the person who actually does have the idol. And of course, Sophie, not wanting Adam to be on her trail at all, starts to turn the tables onto him, starting to see that villainous side of Sophie that we got to see briefly when she played on Survivor South Pacific. I mean, she was the protege of Coach, after all. So Sarah and Ben pretty much tell Adam that, hey, you can do a bag check right now, because we don't have it. And Adam's just shutting his mouth. He's like, all right, you know what? You don't have to do that. That's not necessary. Sorry, I went after you. He's trying to do damage control. And he's mentioning more and more in confessionals how he's so confident that he's more confident about this than most of the other decisions he's made on Survivor. Which is... I don't know what to think about that. I mean, I understand he's right about the idol being found, but he is way off on this one, and I think him being so naive as to where the immunity idol really is going to get him into big trouble in the future. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So now we go to the immunity challenge, which is just an immunity challenge, not a reward challenge, which kind of surprised me. And it's a familiar challenge. It's one that was featured in David vs. Goliath. So it's one that Nick has played and failed miserably at. It's the challenge where his tribe failed miserably, and it was part of one of the biggest blowouts in Survivor history. So obviously, Nick wants redemption. And honestly, I haven't seen this challenge. I've completely forgotten about a lot of the elements from it, even though I've seen it before. This is one of the hardest challenges I think I've ever seen on Survivor. Just trying to maintain that level of balance with the water in the pan or the bowl, whatever you want to call it, and trying to get over all those obstacles, it's not an easy task. So I really had no idea who was going to come out on this challenge or who wasn't. So I wasn't going to make any predictions until I started to see the challenge run. And right away, my focus went straight to the Yara tribe. Whereas we see Dakal and Sele go relatively faster through the obstacles and lose a lot of water along the way, Yara is going ridiculously slow through the obstacles, but at the same time preserving as much water as they possibly can. And Jeff's bringing up the same points that I was bringing up as I was watching it at home. Whether thinking that this could be a huge payoff for them, or this could be a gigantic blunder. I kept thinking in the back of my mind, if somebody drops that bowl like right at the end and all the water spills out, they're done. They're going to tribal council, and most likely Adam would be sent home. But thankfully that didn't happen. Their move paid off spectacularly, and they got a huge, well, not a huge, but a pretty big early lead on the puzzle. And thankfully, it was a lead that they did not give up. They won the challenge, first place, they were safe and locked into the merge. Which I didn't know at the time, but after that challenge, they were locked in. So then it became a race between it became a race between Dakal and Sele as to who was going to be the other tribe to win immunity. And it was during this puzzle-making portion that Wendell started to sort of trash talk the competition a little. Okay, maybe not trash talk is the right word. But he was gloating a little bit. He was already trying to draw Probst's attention, trying to make up for his big mistake on Ghost Island when he finished the puzzle but didn't call Probst's name in time, and that cost him an immunity challenge win. So I was already thinking, like, once he said that, I had a feeling in the back of my mind that Sele just lost. That with the way they were editing this and the way they were showcasing the drama with Wendell, that I really, really thought that Sele was about to lose. And I was right, but damn, was it a close challenge. By literally 1 second, Dakal snuck away with the victory, and Sele was sent to tribal council, meaning Nick lost this crucial immunity challenge once again. At least this time it wasn't a blowout, but this time it was by, again, 1 second, which honestly I think is even worse. That's an even tougher pill to swallow, and you could see the devastation on his face. So, I keep wanting to say Yara. So Sele comes back to camp, and it seems like Yule and Nick are just about done with Wendell and his showboating and his cockiness and his ego. And they're already talking about how they want to lock it down and send him home tonight. Meanwhile, Wendell's trying to get Michelle onto his side to try and get rid of Yule. And as soon as he mentions Yule's name, I kind of tense up a little bit. I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably not going to happen, but I still don't like hearing Yule's name being mentioned to be voted out, because Yule's still one of my favorites, and I still think that he was in a really good position to win the game at that point. So I'm thinking that, okay, seems like a pretty easy vote. Yule, Nick, and Michelle would vote for Wendell, and then there they go. They just continue on into the merge. But at the same time, I'm thinking, this is way too easy. Something's going to happen, and something's going to really alter the status quo over on Sele. And unfortunately, I was right, because Michelle was bringing up the fact of she wasn't sure who was going to get Wendell's fire tokens once he was eliminated. She was already stating that she was regretting giving him the fire token in the first place, which, you're right, you shouldn't have done that. So Yule tries to come up with this intricate plan to make sure that one of them gets the fire tokens that Wendell leaves behind, specifically him, trying to use these particular methods, trying to make sure Wendell's still on their good side. And it's during this conversation that Nick starts to realize that maybe Wendell's not the threat he needs to worry about. And he starts realizing how intelligent Yule really is. And it was those same tactics that helped Yule win Cook Islands, and what I really thought would have helped him get really, really far in this game. So then Nick starts talking with Michelle, saying, maybe getting rid of Yule would be the better move tonight. and my heart starts to sink. I'm thinking, this is not happening. This is not happening. Because I know what I said. I know what a lot of people have been saying, how they're pissed that all the big players are going home or all the old school players are going home. And at first I'm saying, yeah, that's just the game. That's how it's played. They're big targets for a reason. But with Yule leaving, I didn't want that to happen for multiple reasons. Again, he's someone I really like, and another reason is that he was really the only old school player left. I at least wanted someone to represent the old school players going into the merge. And there's a good chance someone will with this returning challenge. But I didn't want it to be a complete deficit or a deduction of all those players before the tribes even came together. So I was still holding out hope that this was just a big fake out. They were going to go back on their plan to get rid of Yule and would have instead gotten rid of Wendell instead. Because I felt like Michelle really, really wants Wendell gone, and I believe she still does. That she wants that sort of retribution, since I guess their relationship really did not end on great terms. So in the back of my mind, I'm still trying to tell myself, Wendell's going to go home, you're fine, everything's going to be alright. So then Tribal Council happens, and Wendell already knows he screwed up at the challenge today. He already knows he's in hot water. And Yule once again goes into a giant speech about the survivor economy that's become established with the fire tokens. And it's as he keeps talking, I'm thinking in my head, Yule, shut up, shut up, shut up. Because it's these intricate plans and big theories that are the reason you're getting targeted in the first place. Don't give them more ammo to get rid of you. I mean, I know he didn't realize he was being targeted that night, but still, this was just... Like, once he was saying that, I was really starting to get more of a bad feeling that this was not going to end well. But I was still holding out hope. There was still clear hostility between Wendell and Michelle at Tribal Council. I was trying to think, okay, no, Michelle's going to use this opportunity to get rid of Wendell. End of story. The votes are cast. It's 1 vote Yule, 1 vote Wendell. The next vote is revealed, and I was so nervous. And it said Yule's name, and I just went, fuck. Ugh. Yule was blindsided at Tribal Council. He took it well, thankfully. And with that, all of the old school players are officially out of the official game and are now at edge of extinction. That really sucked to see Yule go, especially since I'm really not the biggest fan of Wendell right now. As for Nick and Michelle, if this was a smart move for them to make or not, it's tricky. Because in the long run, yes, it was. Because even though I really like Yule, I do know he was a huge threat. And it was smart for them to realize how big of a threat he really was. So I can respect them for taking the shot against him when they did. But at the same time, with the merge happening next episode, Nick is probably going to reconnect with Sophie. And I don't know how she's going to like the fact that her closest ally, Yule, was sent home by his hands, and Michelle's hands, and Wendell's hands. I really think Yule getting blindsided marked the official end of the Free Agents Alliance and their true solidarity. But we'll have to find out next episode to see where they really stand. So, Yule gets eliminated, and his fire tokens... And this was another reason why I don't think Michelle and Nick's plan really worked out. Because they didn't get the fire tokens, and neither did Wendell. Instead, Yule decided to split up the 2 fire tokens he had. He gave one of them to Sarah, and he gave the other one to Sophie, which I didn't even think about putting tokens in multiple boxes once you're eliminated. For some reason, I thought you had to give all of them to one person. So, it's nice to see Yule still looking out for Sophie, and I'm surprised he gave one to Sarah too, but then again, Sarah was another ally from his original tribe, so I guess I can understand from that standpoint. So, now that Sarah and Sophie have a little bit more power, that's really gonna shake things up once we get into the merge. I know I've said that like 100 times once we get into the merge, but it's a big deal. Obviously, next episode, everyone's going to be on one beach, and everyone's going to be scrambling. We saw so many names being brought up as targets. Tony, Adam, I think Sarah's name was mentioned. I want to say Nick or Michelle. I think everyone's name is definitely on the radar. Everyone is looking out for everyone, and not to mention someone's coming back into the game. I don't know who that's going to be, and I'm going to make a prediction right now as to who I think will come back into the game. There's 8 people on the edge of extinction right now. Natalie, Amber, Danny, Ethan, Tyson, Rob, Parvati, and now Yule. So 8 very different players, 8 very different styles of gameplay. I don't think Amber's going to come back. I don't think Danny's going to come back because she's barely gotten any screen time at all. I don't think it's going to be Parvati or Tyson. I don't know why. I mean, it's hard because there's so many big players. Honestly, I think the person that's going to come back into this game based on challenge performances is going to be Rob. Is that the person that's at the top of my list? No. The top of my list right now is Ethan, because I at least want to see him play the game a little more. But I think with his 3 fire tokens and the way the edit is possibly setting us up for a big return of the Godfather, I think that Boston Rob will be coming back into the game next episode. But that's just a prediction. I have no idea if I'm going to be right or not. Probably not. But we'll have to wait and see. So that will just about do it for this episode of Reality Bites. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Jake Schaff. I will see you next time for the Survivor Merge.